No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars, come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I loved my dad a lot.
I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero.
I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risked their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has when you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home, you can be safe, there's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our government was established to secure these rights and for the good that comes from exercising them well. This is why the founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding. Because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire. Hillsdale College, pursuing truth and defending liberty since 1844.
Ready to learn some medieval combat, kiddo?
You bet, Dad. Let's do this.
You know, spending quality time with your kids is important. But finding a fun and safe way to do it can really be a challenge. That's where halberds come in. Halberds are the perfect way to bond with your kid while teaching them about history and physical fitness. Plus, they're a blast to play with. So next time you're looking for some family fun activity, grab a halberd and get ready to make some memories.
Come on, Dad. Round 2.
Halberds, bringing families together one medieval battle at a time. This commercial brought to you by the KLRNradio.com Ad Council.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
I'm Jordan Klinger, an attorney at McIntyre Law. The decision to hire an attorney after you've been injured is important. The decision on who to hire is even more important. At McIntyre Law, we will settle a case if the offer to our client is fair. Partial justice is no justice at all. At McIntyre Law, we are committed to obtaining full justice for our clients. Contact McIntyre Law at 405-917-5200 or visit us at mcintyrelaw.com.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the number one way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Capital steps, Rick's calling out the truth, no time for regrets. He's got fire in his voice and facts in his hand, talking sense to the people all across this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show, where truth lies high, no spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From DC to Tulsa and OKC, he's calling it out with a mic and a mission and a whole lot of clout. This is Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel. Cutting through the lies, shining a light where the shadow hides. With guests on the line and coders on deck, he's the voice of the folks DC tends to forget. Grab your coffee, raise the flag, he's standing tall. The white flag, news with the backbone, voice of the free. Race got the pulse of democracy. It's the Rick Robinson Show.
And welcome to the edition of so live right now on KLRNradio.com. Alright, so as usually happens, right out of the show, that all the things we're going to talk about. You realize there's breaking news all over the place. The first thing we're going to do in just a second is we're going to join into some congressional testimony that is happening regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon, or as we used to call them before it became uncool, UFOs. And that's happening right now. So we're going to be joining that in just a moment and see what we can figure out there, see what they're talking about. But we're going to be joining that right now. Going to get straight into that. Got a lot of other stuff to talk about. There's been some Israeli strikes in Qatar. Some are saying too little, too late. I guess we'll find out soon enough. And a lot of folks, of course, are mad with the whole Israeli situation. You've got the French government basically collapsing. Who didn't see this coming? and so much more. So we're going to start trying to take things one step at a time, piece by piece, bit by bit. And let's start with this, because like I said, there's breaking news all over the place as soon as I planned out my show.
And what they will not forgive is a government that withholds the truth and punishes those who dare to speak up. I want to close with this. Future generations will look back at this moment and ask what we did when presented with the unknown. Did we look away, embarrassed or afraid, or did we pursue the truth with courage? I intend to be on the side of truth, transparency, and accountability, and I hope my colleagues on this task force will be able to do the same. To quote a few elected officials, Senator Schumer has stated, multiple credible sources allege a constitutional crisis over UFOs. Senator Rounds has stated that these are brilliant individuals and they are not making this stuff up. And our current Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has stated very high clearances and high positions within our government in regards to these whistleblowers. Senator McConnell also described these whistleblowers as sane and credible. And the witnesses today are not alone. In fact, they're far from it. In fact, 34 senior military, government, and intelligence officials have broken their silence. This includes now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Senator Rounds, Senator Gillibrand, General Jim Clapper, the former director of the government's UAP task force, the former head of aviation security for the White House National Security Council, the former Secretary of Defense, and many more. Again, to quote Secretary of State Rubio in an upcoming documentary known as The Age of Disclosure, even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis that begins to spin out of control. And to quote Senator Gillibrand, who also went public in this documentary, it's not acceptable to have secret parts of this government that no one ever sees. It's time for the fundamental truths of UAP to be revealed to our nation's leaders and the public. It's time for the U.S. government to exercise transparency. And with that, I yield to Ranking Member Crockett for the opening statement.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. At a time of increasing distrust in government, it is important for Congress to take action to restore the government's credibility. Bringing transparency to an issue of great public interest is a step toward doing just that. So I thank Chairwoman Luna for calling this bipartisan hearing to discuss unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, which is today's term for what was commonly known as UFOs, unidentified flying objects. And while some people think of flying saucers when they hear these terms, it is vital that we focus on the real-world impact of UAPs on critical infrastructure, civilian safety, and national security. There is to believe that most UAPs have origins far to home. Currently, NASA has not found any evidence that any UAPs have an extraterrestrial origin. Our adversaries are working to develop new capabilities to gain military advantages, and those efforts are likely explanation for the mysteries that we have observed. Nevertheless, the federal government has a responsibility to the American people to investigate and provide transparent disclosures about every incident. The federal government is equally obligated to protect those who report what they've seen, especially to commanding officers and supervisors. And Congress should do everything in its power to protect whistleblowers and conduct oversight of agencies that are failing to provide that protection. Democracy depends on transparency, and transparency often relies on the courage of individuals willing to risk their careers, reputations, and in some cases, their personal safety to tell the truth. So I look forward to hearing from the witnesses today. We should welcome their accounts and acknowledge the bravery they have shown to come before us. We must ensure that all whistleblowers feel that they can come to Congress to tell their stories without fear of retaliation or professional consequences. We need transparency not just to make better policy, but also to ensure that information flows between all those who need it. There are too many tragic examples in our history where information lapses and a lack of cross-agency coordination led to disaster. Just this year, failure to communicate between FAA and the Department of Defense led to tragedy over the Potomac. The Biden-Harris administration sought to eliminate some of these lapses when it established the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office at the Department of Defense. AARO can convene sources from all branches of military, the FAA, and NASA to combine forces to create a comprehensive picture of what is happening in our skies. Some UAP reports have perfectly normal explanations: satellites, consumer drones, weather balloons, even pranks. But we need to track down each and every single UAP. The United States has millions of eyes in the sky, both electronic and human. But only the combination of civilian, commercial, and military sources can begin to create a complete picture. So we need to ensure that people can come forward and report what they have seen to the relevant authorities, and they have to have the right to do so without fear of retaliation. This country has a history of dedicated public servants standing up for what is right, even in the face of potential consequences. From the Pentagon Papers to Watergate to torture programs, whistleblowers have not only informed the public, but also empowered Congress to fulfill its constitutional duty of oversight. Past Congresses have written laws to grant legal protection for whistleblowers, and it is up to us to work responsibly with all sources to hold the executive branch accountable. We are here today to listen to the stories of those who have witnessed events of interest to the American people, and to support the policies that cultivate an environment that welcomes and protects whistleblowers. I hope this hearing will be an example of the respect and protection whistleblowers deserve and the importance of conducting oversight of the federal government. I yield back.
I am pleased to welcome the panel of witnesses for today's hearing. I'd first like to welcome Mr. Jeffrey Nusatelli. He's a United States Air Force veteran and a career federal employee with more than 20 years of experience in national security, law enforcement, and public administration. Next, we have Mr. Alexandra Wiggins. Mr. Wiggins is currently serving as a Senior Chief Operations Specialist in the United States Navy. Mr. Wiggins is testifying in his personal capacity today and not on behalf of the United States Navy. Next, I would like to recognize the gentlewoman from Nevada, Representative Titus.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, ranking members, for allowing me to sit with you on this panel today. I'm honored to be able to introduce a witness here who is from my district, George Knapp, who has been the definitive expert and reporter on this topic that you're exploring today, UAPs or UFOs. George is a longtime friend, I'll say that up front, but a very respected journalist and a recognized expert in this field nationally and internationally. Just a little something about George. He came to Las Vegas in 1979 and joined KLS television station as a general assignment reporter in 1981. Since 1995, he's been the chief investigative reporter for that channel. He also hosts a national radio show you can listen to on Coast to Coast AM, which covers many of the paranormal topics that y'all are discussing. Over the years, George has been, as I said, recognized for his work. He's been honored with the Peabody Award, the DuPont Award, the Edward Murrow Award, and 27 different regional Emmys for his investigative reporting. Indeed, he has told Nevada's story with clarity, with objectivity, and with integrity. So I know that his testimony today is going to be of great interest and value to this committee. So thank you very much.
Next, we have Mr. Dylan Borland. Mr. Borland is a United States Air Force veteran and has a long career in federal service. And finally, I'd like to introduce Mr. Joe Spielberger, a senior policy counsel at the Project of Government Oversight. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and the nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that the witnesses answered an affirmative. Thank you. You may take your seat. We appreciate you being here today, and I look forward to hearing your testimony. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your written statements, and it will appear in full in the hearing record. Please limit your oral statements to 5 minutes, but I understand you have a lot to get through, so if it goes a little over, don't worry about it. As a reminder, please press the button on the microphone in front of you so that it is on and the members can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow, and when the red light comes on, your 5 minutes have expired, and we will ask you to please wrap it up. I now recognize Mr. Nusatelli for his opening statement.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairwoman Luna, Ranking Member Crockett, and members of the task force for giving us the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jeffrey Nusatelli. I'm a former military police officer with 16 years of active duty service in the U.S. Air Force. I'm here today because the American people have both the right and the responsibility to know the truth about unidentified aerial phenomenon. That truth remains hidden, classified and silenced by fear, retaliation, stigma, and confusion. Today, we are here to help break that silence. Between 2003 and 2005, 5 UAP incidents occurred at Vandenberg Air Force Base, home to the National Missile Defense Project, a top national security priority. At the time, we were conducting launches deemed by the National Reconnaissance Office as the most important in 25 years. These were historic launches. These facilities were vital, and they were repeatedly visited by UAP. Each incident was witnessed by multiple personnel, documented, investigated, and reported up the chain of command. We sent information up, but we got no guidance down on how to handle these events. I personally witnessed one of these events and investigated others as they occurred. 6 other service members have provided me with the information that I will share with you today. The incursions began on October 14, 2003, when Boeing contractors reported a massive glowing red square silently hovering over 2 missile defense sites. After several minutes, it drifted further east onto the base and vanished over the hills. This event, now known as the Vandenberg Red Square, was referenced by Representative Luna at the first hearing on this topic. Official Air Force records of this event are in possession by Aero and the FBI. Later that night, while I was on duty, security guards at a critical launch site reported a bright, fast-moving object over the ocean. I responded to the incident. Chaos ensued over the radio as the object approached rapidly. I heard my friends screaming, "It's coming right at us, it's coming right for us, and now it's right here." Moments later, I heard them say that it had shot off and was gone. When I arrived on scene, I talked to 5 shaken witnesses who described a massive triangular craft larger than a football field that hovered silently for about 45 seconds over their entry control point before shooting away at impossible speed. About a week later, another patrol reported a light over the ocean, behaving erratically. Believing it might be an unannounced aircraft, they declared an emergency, and an armed response force responded. Before the forces could arrive, the object descended and either landed or hovered on our flight line, and then took off again at impossible speed. The witnesses to this event were threatened and intimidated afterward. They were told to keep quiet and think about what they were reporting. After that, things did get quiet until about 2005, when another patrol reported a massive triangular craft larger than a C-130 silently floating over the installation. He watched it for a few minutes. It traveled west and disappeared into the night. And then I had my own encounter, again in 2005. I was off duty, sitting in my backyard with 2 other police officers when we noticed what first appeared to be a satellite in orbit, but it wasn't acting like a satellite. The light was strange, it was pulsing, and then it started to maneuver. It dropped in elevation. At times it would vanish from view and reappear in a different location in the sky, and eventually it reappeared 200 feet over my house. It was a 30-foot diameter sphere of light. My friends and I watched it for a moment, and then it gently accelerated and traveled up and disappeared into the stars. These events profoundly changed my life and the lives of my friends. We stand at a pivotal moment in history. The question is no longer whether these events are real, but whether we have the courage to face them. True leadership requires vision, a willingness to confront the unknown with transparency and resolve. So I ask the Congress to help we, the people, enact this vision. There are 3 goals. Fund independent research and treat UAP study with the same seriousness as we would any other scientific field. 2, end secrecy and overclassification. Transparency is the foundation of truth. Without it, witnesses like us are dismissed. 3, protect the witnesses. Many stay silent out of fear for their careers, reputations, and the safety of their families. Protect them, and you will embolden others to join this cause. These phenomena challenge our deepest assumptions about reality, consciousness, and our place in the universe. Exploring them can unlock transformative breakthroughs in technology, biology, and human understanding. Let this be the moment when America chooses courage over fear, transparency over secrecy, and progress over stagnation. Let's show the world that our nation leads not only through strength, but through fearless pursuit of the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nusatelli. Please hold on here. I now recognize Chief Wiggins for his opening statement. Please press your button. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairwoman Luna.
Push
Ranking
the
Member
button,
Crockett,
Frank.
And members of the task force and the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Alexandra Wiggins. I'm an active duty U.S. Navy Operations Specialist, Senior Chief Petty Officer, father of 3, and dedicated American testifying today in my personal capacity. The views I share are my own, and I do not represent the official positions of the Department of the Navy or any subordinate organization. On the evening of February 15th, 2023, at approximately 19:15 PST, in the Whiskey 291 warning area off the coast of Southern California, I was serving on board USS Jackson. During that period, I moved between the Interior Communications Center, ICC-1, and the bridge wing, correlating the sensor picture with visual observations, part of my routine responsibilities for surface and air picture management. What I observed and what our crew recorded was not consistent with conventional aircraft or drones as they appear on our system. A self-luminous tic-tac shaped object emerged from the ocean before linking up with 3 other similar objects. The 4 then disappeared simultaneously with a high synchronized near instantaneous acceleration. I observed no sonic boom and no conventional propulsion signatures, no exhaust plume, no control surface articulation on the Sapphire image system. Shortly after the synchronized departure, radar tracks dropped. These observations were multi-sensor and recorded inside of ICC-1 with time location overlay visible in our source frames that have been made public by journalists. From my experience operating in this region over many years and consistent with our public characterized encounters, unidentified objects reoccur in United States operation areas off Southern California. That fact alone does not tell us what they are, but it does argue the systematic stigma-free reporting and for the preservation of sensor data so analysts can evaluate safe and intelligence implications with rigor. I want to underscore 3 points for the task force and the committee. Aviation and maritime safety. When crews and watchstanders observe objects that maneuver or accelerate in ways that does not match known profiles and do so near our ships and aircraft, that is first and foremost a safety issue. Standardized checklists and training should ensure we capture the best possible sensor data in real time, including IR settings, slant range, estimates and bearing and range altitude snapshots, and immediate chain of custody for any recordings. Reporting without stigma, protection without retribution. Sailors need to know that reporting UAP encounters will not harm their careers. Congress can help by reinforcing witness protection and by directing the relevant office to maintain confidential, destigmatized channels for service members who step forward with data. Declassification and transparency where possible. The task force declassification mission is directly relevant here. Where operational security permits releasing metadata preserved sensor excerpts or at least technical summaries would improve public trust and accelerate outside scientific scrutiny. That includes, when feasible, the time geo-reference IR frames and radar parameters needed for independent analysis. To be clear, I am not here to make claims beyond my lane. I am here to provide a first-hand account of what I saw, what our systems recorded, and why it matters for safety, for intelligence, and public confidence. My request to you is practical. Help us capture, protect, fairly evaluate the evidence, and provide a safe pathway for those in uniform to report it. In closing, I want to thank the committee and the task force for holding this hearing and for placing this discussion in a forum where evidence can be examined carefully and openly. I appreciate your attention and stand ready to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, I think we're going to move away from that. There hasn't really been anything earth-shattering or groundbreaking or anything, so I think we're going to move away from that for a while. I may or may not come back to it at some point, but since I'm only doing 2 hours today, I didn't want to take up the whole show with it. I just kind of wanted to check out the opening because it just started. And besides, it's not like there isn't plenty of news to talk about. So the Qataris just got kicked in the nuts by the Israelis. As soon as I get any more information about that, you guys will too, but looks like BDAs are still coming in. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's a battle damage assessment. So once I know, you'll know. Looks like the French government either is collapsing or has collapsed. I'm gathering as much information about that as I can while we go along. Let's take a quick look at the headlines and see if anything else has been happening while we have been over there paying attention to those UFO hearings. Looks like there's a new NBC poll out that actually has some new information about a stark divide developing within the country. I say developing like it hasn't been this way for a while, but so a new NBC poll highlights a deep cultural and ideological divide between young Americans, particularly between Gen Z men who support President Donald Trump and Gen Z women who back former Vice President Kamala Harris. According to the data, young men who voted for President Trump prioritized building families and achieving financial independence. Their top concerns were having children and becoming financially self-sufficient. Core values aligned with personal responsibility, long-term stability, and what is typically referred to as traditional success. In contrast, Gen Z women who voted for Harris ranked career advancement and financial gain as their highest priorities. Strikingly, having children came in at 12th on their list of concerns, well behind personal ambition and economic goals. I would like to point out that the one thing that I didn't find in any of these breakdowns or crosstabs is any emphasis on any type of faith whatsoever. So the contrast isn't just ideological, it's cultural. The Trump supporting cohort reflects a grounded, forward-looking mindset that values responsibility, legacy, and self-reliance. Meanwhile, the liberal female bloc appears more focused on individualism and short-term achievement, even as studies show increasing rates of depression and loneliness among that very group. This widening values gap among America's youth raises serious questions about the future of family, purpose, and national cohesion. While one side looks to build, the other seems adrift, pushing policies and priorities that are leaving an entire generation unhappy, isolated, and unfulfilled. So I'm going to say that's probably not a coincidence that rates of depression, anxiety, and loneliness are skyrocketing, especially among young left-leaning women. Study after study confirms what common sense already tells us. People are happier when they have purpose, meaningful relationships, and a future to look forward to. But for many liberal Gen Z women, those ideals have been replaced by careerism, identity politics, and grievance culture. The result is a generation increasingly unfulfilled, despite endless promises of empowerment. And we've talked about that a lot on this show, especially because I would like to point out that a lot of these blue cities that are some of the worst places on earth have been run by Democrats for anywhere between 30 to 50 years, and they're all becoming hellholes. Some of them are hellholes already. So this divide that we have is especially the divide between men and women that are starting to view things completely differently and disparately from one another. That should terrify a lot of us. Now, I'm not trying to jump on this bandwagon because, we went from, oh my God, there's too many people and we have to do something about it, to, oh my God, now we're having too few kids and we're going to eventually have to do something about it. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger. I'm really not. Well, so BZ made it a very salient point. Women can't do everything. They've been told, especially the last couple of generations of women, have been told that they can do everything we can do and they can do it better. There's even a song about it. Everything you can do, I can do better. And it's a lie. There are differences between the sexes for a reason. We are supposed to be complementary to one another. I think this is another reason why we have, or we had, I feel like it's changing a bit, if I'm being honest. I think Gen Z boys are moving away from this soy boy crap. At least a good bit of them. But it's no wonder that they have grown up that way because of all the broken homes that we have now. And let's not forget, the broken homes are happening by design. The government has wanted it that way for a while. And this is another mission creep when it comes to the influx of communism into this country. Everyone seems to forget that in communist countries, the state is everything. The state is mother and father. You hear this echoed quite a bit in a lot of sci-fi that came out in the 90s. For Babylon 5, it was Psychor. The core is mother and father. The state is mother and father, is a preemptive or preeminent thought of communist society, because there is nothing above humanity as far as they are concerned. We are at the pinnacle of our evolution. There's nothing better than us, nothing above us. Once we die, that's it. So the state is mother and father. And you're seeing, and for the longest time, you were seeing both sexes kind of buying into that a little bit. Now, the question is, as more and more young men are moving away from this idea that masculinity is toxic and are actually relearning what it is to be a man, is this going to be enough to eventually save our country or not? I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that as somebody that has been having to spend a lot more time in the city than I used to, especially lately, I have been pretty heartened to see kids out playing and riding bikes again. Before I moved to the country, that was almost never happening. So things are starting to change. Kids are starting to go outside more again. We're moving more away from, I don't want to necessarily say completely away from helicopter parenting, but more of, you've got to let kids figure some things out on their own, which hasn't been happening in this country for the last couple of generations. It really hasn't. And I think part of that is because Gen X kids felt so abandoned by our parents that we decided we were going to be the parents that were always there. We were the ones that made sure we were home at night. We were the ones that made sure we were there because we didn't have parents. We were feral. So some folks didn't like that. And we have a tendency to overcorrect when we try to fix things. And that's just the truth of it. But so now we're starting to see these gaps that are forming within the same generations now between men and women who have completely different ideas about what it is that they want to do with their lives. And I've noticed women are becoming the more selfish ones in a lot of cases. It used to be us. We were all about just going out, conquering the world, grabbing whatever we could grab, dragging it back home, doing what we could do, and then move on. Now it seems the women are starting to try to assume that role. I don't know how well that's going to work. And I don't mean that in any type of a disparaging way. The simple fact of the matter is there are differences between the sexes, and there are supposed to be. We are created to complement one another, not to fight with each other. And this is one of the things that I've never, you have to understand, as an ordained minister, and I'm actually going to be doing a ceremony again later this month. I have been counseling the folks and talking to the folks that I'm going to be marrying later this month and trying to make them understand this isn't about winning and losing. If that's going to be your mindset, it's never going to work. So the fact that the gender that is more geared towards nurturing and more detail oriented because of the need to nurture is now all about career, 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 and nothing but career. It's no wonder they're not happy. But remember, we allowed this to happen. We did this. We allowed our government to tell us what to do, when to do it, and allowed them to bastardize what the idea of the American dream is to the point where it's unrecognizable now and also nearly unattainable. Everybody's complaining about the lack of housing, the lack of jobs, the lack of this, the lack of that. You know, if we just revoked the 55 million visas that are in the pipeline right now, how many more houses would we have access to? If we actually got all the illegals out of the country, how many jobs would we have access to? And I don't want to hear nothing about, well, if you do that, the farmers are going to go bankrupt. You are the same people that keep posting this crap all the time, that if you have a job that pays minimum wage, if you are somebody who runs a business and the people that you're employing only make minimum wage, then you are exploiting them. These people are making below minimum wage. And I don't hear you bitching about that. If anything, well, what are we going to do now? Because prices are going to go up. You don't worry about that anytime we talk about minimum wage in this country. I don't hear a single one of you talking about how, now that for fast food workers, I think California's minimum wage is somewhere between $20 and $25 an hour. Nobody wants to talk about all the automation that's starting to spring up. Dude, Steven, don't even get me started on that, because I've actually been doing a lot of research, because up until recently, that's been happening here a lot more than I realized. We actually have a member of our state house who stepped in and has done some work to get that to stop. But I'm still trying to untangle all of that crap, because apparently it's been happening here for a while. And for those of you that aren't in watching the video and maybe listening to the audio versions later, he said these are the same people selling farms to China and Gates. Speaking of Gates, am I the only one that's a little, finds it, as the kids say, a little sus that he's suddenly throwing money at Donald Trump? Am I the only one who finds that a little, I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe, is it just me? Is it just me? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. It could just be me. That's all right. That's all right. All right. So we got to talk about this, because especially now that through executive order, the Secretary of Defense has been renamed to Secretary of War again. A lot of folks are whining about Pete Hegseth being unqualified. Yeah. So a guy who, if memory serves, he was a major, which means he was at least an officer, and he was actually in a leadership position. Everybody seems to forget that from I think it was 2013 to 2015, maybe, Chuck Hagel was Secretary of Defense. Dude was an E5. E5. Elevated to SecDef, as they used to call it just a few days ago. I didn't hear anybody screaming, at least not on the left, screaming and yelling about how unqualified he was. I mean, dude rose above E4 Mafia, but still, you got it. You they elevated an enlisted man to Secretary of Defense while Barack Obama was in office. It was either 2011 to 2013 or 2013 to 2015. I don't have it in front of me right now, and I don't feel like going back to look it up. And I didn't sleep last night, so my brain isn't doing what it normally does. At least not as well as it normally does. But I just find that rather interesting that there was somebody who just a few short years ago, I mean, granted, that's been a minute. We're looking at anywhere between 14 to 12 years, depending on when it actually took place. But, that's not that long ago for people to have memory hold the fact that dude, who was an enlisted soldier became Secretary of Defense. Just pointing that out. Just love pointing that out for all the people that are screaming and yelling about how terrible of a job Pete Hegseth is doing, which I don't think he is. I'm going to be honest, especially with the name change back to Secretary of War. If we're actually going to start making our military do what it used to be able to do, which is basically focus on killing people and breaking things when asked to do so, that's going to change the world. Because if we're going to stop treating our military as if they're police officers and have to follow the same, all the things that cops have to do, because that's what we've been doing to them with all these police actions. We've been basically sending them into situations with one hand tied behind their back, saying you can't do these things. You can't do things this way. This is why the original title of today's show is "Why Does the Left Hate Crime So Much?" Because now you're still seeing people screaming and yelling about the fact that, ICE is currently trying to clean up Chicago. You've got people, most of them were paid to do it. They don't want to tell you that part, but you had people in Washington, D.C. the other day, supposedly, protesting the fact that the streets were safer. Have they really, are they just, have they lost touch, or is it that they're so embattled in what they consider a revolution that they just don't care anymore? Because I'm going to say it's probably a little bit of both, but the fact that they're just brazenly out there, why? What are you doing this for? Why what is this about? Why are you doing this? We don't need to do this. There's nothing bad here. But if you think that what's happening across the pond with the death of free speech in Britain, France's government on the verge of collapse. I just read a story about a bus rider in Canada that got stabbed in the neck. Dude that did it called 911 and said he did it for ISIS. Now, this is in the same country where the people in charge of the police departments are telling you, just let these people do whatever they're going to do. This is why we have a Second Amendment. This is why we have a Second Amendment. All right, so I'm looking to see if we have any updates because it looks like Missouri has joined the redistricting bandwagon. Looks like there was a vote underway earlier. I'm trying to see if we have any updates on that. So now what I'm about to read you is written through PJ Media, and it's written by Matt Margolis. So please understand, I'm not putting these words in anybody's mouths, and I'm not telling any of you that are, maybe I don't have to go out and vote. Yes, you do. Go do it. So the 2026 House elections are shaping up to be a nightmare. Are they really? And frankly, they have no one to blame but themselves for escalating a redistricting war they cannot win. While the left continues to whine about gerrymandering when it works against them, they conveniently forget their own history of creative map drawing when it suits their purposes. So let's start with Texas, where Republicans are poised to add up to 5 additional seats through redistricting. That's 5 more reliable conservative votes, maybe, in a chamber where control often comes down to a handful of seats. Meanwhile, California Democrats are scrambling to squeeze more seats from an already gerrymandered state gerrymandered AF state, they've already maximized their redistricting potential in the Golden State, leaving little room for meaningful gains, even if they pursue further changes. The real story here, though, isn't just Texas. Red states across the map are flexing their redistricting muscles thanks to Governor Gavin Newsom's flex. Indiana, Ohio, and Missouri are all redrawing their congressional boundaries in ways that will favor Republicans. While Democrats clutch their pearls about the unfairness of it all, Republican strategists are doing exactly what they should be doing by fighting back against years of Democrats rigging maps and counting votes until they win. Because that's the other thing they do. In the purple districts, they'll do over the and notice they only really try to do it in the purple ones. But they'll do everything they can, even if it takes 60, 65 days worth of counting to eke out that seat. So here's where the math gets brutal for Democrats, however. Even if California somehow manages to eke out additional seats through redistricting, Democrats would still need to win the national popular vote by at least 2.3 percentage points just to have a fighting chance at retaking the House majority. If California's redistricting effort fails, and it could, but Ohio, Indiana, and Missouri move ahead with redistricting anyway, Democrats need to win by 2.8 points. If Florida also redistricts, that margin would jump to 3.4 points. So this is from Eric Doherty on X. Breaking, it's now being reported that even if Gavin succeeds by redistricting California, Democrats will need to win the popular vote in 2026 by 2.3 points or more to barely take the House of Representatives. Assuming the current red states move forward on redistricting, that will go higher. For context, Donald Trump won the 2024 popular vote by 1.5 points. Yes, midterm elections are extremely different from presidential elections, primarily because of turnout, but that's still a significant swing. So now we have a situation where the structural advantage Republicans are building through redistricting means Democrats need to consistently win the popular vote by 2 to 3 points nationally to be favored for House control. And that makes things tough, but not impossible. A 2 to 3 point structural advantage for the GOP is meaningful, but pretty modest, notes Nate Cohen at the New York Times. With Democrats leading by 4 points in the national generic ballot polls today, the party would still be favored to win next year's midterm election. The Republicans wouldn't stand much of any chance at all of surviving a so-called wave election like in 2018 when Democrats won the House popular vote by 7 points. Now, I would like to point out that according to certain polls, in the generic ballots, the Democrats are up by 4 points. Riddle me as to why the fuck that's even happening right now, please. Because I don't get it. So here's the catch. They have virtually no margin for error. A few weak candidates, poorly timed retirements, or shifting demographics in key districts could easily hand control back to Republicans. And if the Democrats' popular vote advantage turns out to be much less than 4 points, the new maps could give the Republicans the advantage. Democrats, for instance, might not be able to get away with their own version of the GOP's disappointing red ripple election in 2022 and still win. They might not win if 2026 is like the narrow Democratic victory from 2020 either. Indeed, each of the last 3 congressional elections was decided by 3 points or less in the national popular vote, with the winner prevailing by less than 7 seats. Again, some of that's because of creative counting, especially in places like California. But we're talking about razor-thin margins, which is why I'm saying to you, and I've been saying this the entire time, just because you think we're going to mop the floor with them doesn't mean you take your foot off their necks. Because trust me, they wouldn't take their foot off yours. I'm also starting to see some rumblings that the Senate might be considering the nuclear option when it comes to some of these appointments. I have more information about that too. If that is so, so yeah, if that occurs in 2026, then that would be pretty much under unprecedented contrasted to who sits in the Oval Office at the time. And that's from BZ in the chat. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me today, because you've been the most active chatter today. Oh, all right. So let's see what other trouble we can get into real quick. We got a couple minutes before we got to take the top of the hour break. All right, so we kind of touched on this a little bit ago, so let's take a big, deeper look at it. This is from Rick Moran again over at PJ Media. So on Monday, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson anticipated the administration's action, saying the surge of federal law enforcement was unnecessary. However, it looks like Operation Midway Blitz has begun, and the mayor of Chicago is not very happy about it, but probably should be. So anyway, for years, Governor That's No Ass, That's My, or That's No Moon, That's My Ass, J.B. Pritzker and his fellow sanctuary politicians released Tren de Aragua gang members, rapists, kidnappers, and drug traffickers on Chicago streets, putting American lives at risk and making Chicago a magnet for criminals, said Tricia McLaughlin, DHS Assistant Secretary. President Trump and Secretary Kristi Noem have a clear message. No city is a safe haven for criminal illegal aliens. If you come to our country illegally and break our laws, we will hunt you down, arrest you, deport you, and you will never return. On Monday, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson anticipated the administration's action, saying the surge of federal law enforcement was unnecessary. If President Trump had listened to the city's leaders, he would recognize that Chicago just experienced record low homicide numbers. Notice how they always say this, making this the safest summer since the 1960s, a result of effective collaboration between communities and law enforcement, Johnson wrote in the New York Times. While questions have been raised about the accuracy of Chicago's violent crime statistics, because mobland, the number of murders is hard to fudge. What Johnson isn't saying is that the 123 murders from June 1 to August 31st don't include either the Memorial Day or Labor Day holiday weekends, when shootings in Chicago always spike. Over the Labor Day weekend, 8 Chicagoans died and 58 more were wounded in a spasm of violence typical of the city during summer holidays. The numbers were more than double from last year, when 6 people died and another 27 were wounded during the 2024 Labor Day holiday weekend. Again, Governor, That's No Moon, That's My Ass, J.B. Pritzker is running hard for Democratic presidential nomination, and said the following: the crackdown was not about fighting crime. And I quote from his account as he quoted the Homeland Secretary at DHS.gov on X. Once again, this isn't about fighting crime. That requires support and coordination. Yet we've experienced nothing like that over the past several weeks. Instead of taking steps to work with us on public safety, the Trump administration focused on scaring Illinoisians. I've never heard them referred to as that, but I don't know. Anyway, so here's a quote from the Chicago Tribune. The Homeland Security statement marks the first official word from the Trump administration about increased immigration enforcement after weeks of Trump facilitating between vows of going into Chicago with the potential deployment of National Guard troops to fight overall crime to a stepped-up immigration enforcement role by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. ICE has secured an office at Naval Station Great Lakes in North Chicago to serve as an operations hub for all of its activities there. There's no word as of now for how long the ICE operation would last, and there was also no mention of whether Trump would deploy the National Guard to play a supporting role. But he probably will. And again, I would like to point out that eventually even the mayor of D.C. kind of sort of came around. Yeah. That's all right. You can Bigfoot my chat anytime you want to, sir. Oh, all right. We got to take the break. I just realized we're actually running a bit long. So We're going to take a break. We're at top of the hour. One more hour on the other side. Don't forget, come back tonight starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern for the Cocktail Lounge. Sorry, did I mention I had a bout of insomnia last night? Also, on Manorama, they will have their first ever official game show. That kicks off at 10 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you come back for that tonight. But for now, don't go too far. Maybe get up, stretch your legs, grab a drink. You could even smoke a little bit of what helps you think if you got any. But I wouldn't suggest that if you're working. But then again, even if you are, I'm probably not your boss and I don't judge. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars. Come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I loved my dad a lot.
I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero.
I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risk their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has. When you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home, you can be safe, there's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being. But among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our government was established to secure these rights and for the good that comes from exercising them well. This is why the founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire. Hillsdale College, pursuing truth and defending liberty since 1844.
Ready to learn some medieval combat, kiddo?
You bet, Dad. Let's do this.
You know, spending quality time with your kids is important, but finding a fun and safe way to do it can really be a challenge. That's where halberds come in. Halberds are the perfect way to bond with your kid while teaching them about history and physical fitness. Plus, they're a blast to play with. So next time you're looking for some family fun activity, grab a halberd and get ready to make some memories.
Come on, Dad. Round 2.
Halberds, bringing families together one medieval battle at a time. This commercial brought to you by the KLRNradio.com Ad Council.
I'm Jordan Klinger, an attorney at McIntyre Law. The decision to hire an attorney after you've been injured is important. The decision on who to hire is even more important. At McIntyre Law, we will settle a case if the offer to our client is fair. Partial justice is no justice at all. At McIntyre Law, we are committed to obtaining full justice for our clients. Contact McIntyre Law at 405-917-5200 or visit us at mcintyrelaw.com.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Capitol steps, Rick's calling out the truth, no time for regrets. He's got fire in his voice and facts in his hand, talking sense to the people all across this land. The Rick Robinson Show, where truth lies high, no spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From DC to Tulsa and OKC, he's calling it out with a mic and a mission and a whole lot of clout. This is Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel. Cutting through the lies, shining a light where the shadow hides. Guests on the line, coders on
And welcome back into hour 2 of the Rick Robinson Show, the Happy Not Monday Day edition. That's right. For those of you who are doing the whole Monday through Friday thing, you survived the dreaded Monday. Made it. It's now Tuesday. Basically Monday's kissing cousin, but still not quite as bad as Monday. So you've made it. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure you are liking the feed, sharing the feed, subscribing, whatever your option is. Remember, YouTube and Rumble are available as well. Hitting the subscribe button doesn't cost you anything over there. That's just a way for you to keep up. Also, make sure you're turning on the notification bells. wherever you happen to be finding us at. That way you get notified every time we go live, because there's a lot more content around here than just mine. If you missed it, I do encourage you to check out last Saturday's episode, well, this past Saturday's episode of Juxtaposition. We did another deep dive on the Titanic and some of the conspiracy theories around that. So if you haven't checked that out yet, that is available on YouTube, on Rumble. It is also available pretty much everywhere you can find good audio podcasts. I did good in air quotes because it's us. But anyway, but yeah. So if you haven't checked that out yet, please feel free to do so. You'll have a little bit of time while we have some downtime between when this one wraps and when the next one kicks off. So feel free to check that out later if you want. That one was myself, Ordnance J. Packard. We're usually the duo that does it. We also had the lovely Aggie Rican on with us. Unfortunately, if you're following along with her, you might want to either mute the account or block it for a while, and then go find Aggie the Bar Babe, which is her backup account. And public service announcement, I usually leave these for Amish and the Alien, but if you haven't done so yet, you might want to change your password, especially if it's been a minute since you've changed it. Also, it is a really good idea to turn on two-factor authentication. I know it's a pain in the butt. I hate it. But unfortunately, there is a scam DM going around trying to basically lead you to believe that you have been mass reported, and they direct you to Discord to try to make sure you don't lose your account. And by the time you're done, they have hijacked your account. So while I don't do these that often, I would encourage you to make sure that you have two-factor authentication on, as well as make sure that you are randomly changing your passwords. Because what can I say? Some people are assholes. But this is also a great time to talk about a sponsor, Freedom Chat. If you haven't checked them out yet, I do encourage you to do so. I'll have some information about them up on the screen in just a moment. So feel free to scan that if you want. I got to find it, though, because I forgot where I put it. There we go. You can scan that. It takes you to their webpage. Now, that will basically send you a link or give you a link that allows you to either download for Android or iPhone. It is only available in app form for now. So, anyway. It's new. It's brand new. Think Signal, but better. You can actually turn it you have the ability to create your own channels. You can build communities. You can chat privately with folks, but you also have the option for complete control. So unlike most places where you are the product, because anytime you're on any type of social media platform, whether they tell you that or not, you're basically the product. This one is not that. You also have the ability to make sure that no one can do any type of screen captures. There's no third-party devices, so it's basically on your phone and nowhere else. And it is completely secure. And unlike most places that talk about end-to-end encryption, they actually mean it. Yes, much better than Signal. So you remember the whole thing that broke with the Signal Gate thing where the reporter was accidentally invited in and was able to do all kinds of screen captures and write a story about it? There's a setting there's actually a couple of settings. One, you can set your messages to basically self-delete after a certain amount of time. You can also there's a setting inside your chats where you can actually tell it to not allow anyone, including you, to do any type of screen capture. And if they try, all they get is a blank screen. Yeah, none. No screen captures. Now you can turn that on or off, but if you've got that on, that means if they try to do a screen capture, all they're going to get is a blank screen. I've tested it. So anyway, so feel free to check that out. Actually, Sean has been using it for a while, so I'm surprised you hadn't heard of it yet. You guys and Gene and us are kind of all cross promoting it all over the place. So, but anyway. All right, so let me get that off the screen. Not that I really care that it's got me half covered up because I have a face made for radio anyway, but let me get that off the screen. All right, so I do have something queued up because Charlie Kirk's having a bit of fun at the expense of CNN. I think, yeah, it was Charlie Kirk. All right, so I'm going to play the video first because I'm not sure if he's in this video or not, and then we'll go back and read what he quote tweeted a second ago from it. Oh, of course, never mind. Hang on. I don't know why it always does this. Let me play the video from inside the piece, dang it.
Once they called attention.
Because now you're making me do extra work that I don't really have time for. And I don't like it when you do that. All right, here we go anyway.
Voters once they called attention to it.
So certain people have been looking for an opportunity to find a case like this, to make a point like this. I want to play, this is Charlie Kirk, why he says this hasn't gotten a lot of attention.
A white Ukrainian refugee was murdered just because she was white. Everybody knows that, obviously. If a random white person simply walked up to and stabbed a nice, law-abiding black person for no reason, it would be an apocalyptically huge national story used to impose national sweeping political changes on the whole country. Instead, Megan Basham, no one seems to care when a white woman gets stabbed to the death.
Wow. He said white a lot.
Well, we are talking about it here, so I guess I don't think that's fair. Look, being in the system, because I have represented people who are mentally ill, and here's the balance. The balance is taking away people's freedom versus evaluating their mental illness. In New York City, there are a lot of programs for people who are mentally ill, but they have to want to be there.
Yeah, and it's
about forcing them to be there.
When you are mentally ill, you have a hard time knowing that you are mentally ill. But also, I mean, people like Charlie Kirk, Van, they've been looking for opportunities to make this some sort of like reciprocal George Floyd situation. And that's the part that I think he's almost giving away the game. And it's sad to see a lot of people going along with it.
Let me just say a couple of things. One is, what happened to that young woman was horrible. And it's everybody's nightmare. If you're in any public space, a subway, whatever, that something bad is going to happen to you or somebody you care about. So it does strike a chord. We don't know why that man did what he did. And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, it's just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass. Even when you had a white police officer murder a black man on live television, the whole world saw, there were no sweeping changes. In fact, not one law was passed at the federal level. So I think that's an important thing to point out. The other thing is, you mentioned the thing about cashless bail. I think this is a big challenge that we have. Would you have felt better if there had been cash bail and the mom had come and put down $1,000 to let him out? It's not about cashless bail or no cashless bail. It's about the fact that we don't know how to deal with people who are hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people hurt people. What happened was horrible, but it becomes an opportunity for people to jump.
I can't do it anymore. There's not much left. I can't listen to this motherfucker anymore. I just want to point out that when he's starting with the hurt people, and then he goes into but, psychology 101. Forget everything before the but, because the truth comes after the but. And as soon as he said but, his entire argument went right out the window. Because George Floyd was not murdered by a police officer. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. There's no forensic evidence supporting that. But they don't want to hear it because that's a black man. That entire time, anytime that happens, there are race riots in the streets. Buildings are set on fire. Stores are looted. Maybe we need to start fighting. I'm not going to finish that sentence because I'll get pulled off of YouTube. But yeah. And maybe even Facebook. But still, hey, we have a Denny sighting. Woohoo! But no, I'm so sick of this. I'm so tired. I mean, dude, seriously. If this had been the other way around, they would have been lighting stuff on fire like 5 minutes after it happened and screaming about no justice, no peace. Because they've done it before and they're going to do it again. And I'm just going off of things that I've pieced together while I was putting show notes together today. And I could have sworn somebody put out a story somewhere where dude that just, committed that heinous act was screaming about got the white, couple of times. And if I'm wrong, I will admit that I'm wrong. But I could have swore I saw somebody putting that out. But so now, because they did play what he said, but then he's also uh, he's quote posted from Media Lies. Van Jones, I'm not ashamed, but you should be. You are part of a media cabal that tried to silence this story because it exposes the gross incompetence of Democrats' so-called criminal justice reform. You and other talking heads on TV are complicit in the revolving door that is leading to situations like that lets these violent criminals roam our streets to maim and murder. Secondly, there was no George Floyd Criminal Justice Reform Act because it would have been a disaster. And cooler heads eventually prevailed when we started challenging the DC media establishment. George Floyd died of a drug overdose after a lifetime of destroying his body with illegal substances. BLM burned down American cities and terrorized businesses for a criminal who didn't cooperate with police. His friends did, and they're alive today. How many black and brown people died post Floyd because police were afraid to go into urban neighborhoods for fear of being scapegoated if something went wrong? And yes, of course, if the races were reversed, you'd be the loudest voice crying racism. Mr. Whitelash, the killer, said, "I got that white girl." Why did he say that, Van? Lastly, would you even be talking about this story if we hadn't raised the issue on social media? Of course not. Americans are sick and tired of the lies and the racial grievances built on fake news narratives. The propaganda is literally killing innocent people. And after all of that, he tagged Van Jones and invited him to come onto his show. So, no, there is no comparison. None. Because if it wasn't for the fact that this story absolutely blew up on social media, nobody would be talking about it. Because it's just another dead white person. And white people are evil. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm highlighting this stuff for you today to let you know this isn't just happening here. It's happening everywhere. There was a bus passenger in Canada I talked about this a little bit ago, that was stabbed in the throat. The person who did it called 911 and said that he did it for ISIS. We are hastening our own demise. And it's happening by design. And if we don't wake up, it doesn't matter that a lot of Gen Z is leaning conservative. It doesn't matter that a lot of their kids are doing the things that Gen X did, which means they're probably going to be tough sons of bitches, because it's not going to matter if we get wiped off the map. And we're getting dangerously close. And I submit to you, for those of you that are rolling your eyes at me right now, the fact that France is collapsing as we speak. Because we're usually only a decade or so behind Europe, because for some reason the leftist lunatics in this fucking country absolutely love Europe. And I don't know why. All right, so we may or may not come back to that, because there's something else that I got to talk about. I don't do this very often, but Rand Paul pissed me off the other day. So he and the vice president got in a bit of a tweet fight, to use the old lingo, bit of a post fight. So we're going to talk about that a little bit before we take the break. This is from C.A. Skeet over at PJ Media. Rand Paul is wrong on borders and drug cartels. Move over, Kansas. What's the matter with Kentucky? This reliable red state. Actually, it's, that was changing even before one of our longtime listeners and devout folks passed away. Kentucky's a lot more purple than it used to be. Nobody really talks about that, though. So this reliable, quote-unquote, red state has given us gems like old Rhino Mitch McConnell, new Rhino Thomas Massie, Democrat Governor Andy Beshear, and the increasingly irritating libertarian Rand Paul. If you were trying to help the left thwart the conservative agenda, whom would you elect? The latest bit of higher wisdom from Paul is that foreign terrorists and drug dealers should not only receive the same constitutional due process as law-abiding tax-paying American citizens, but that it is also the responsibility of our government to provide this process. Responding to Vice President J.D. Vance's defense of our military's recent sinking of a drug cartel boat making its way to our shores, Paul asked Vance if he had ever read To Kill a Mockingbird. And as far as what's happening with the drug boats, I only got one thing I want to add about that. And that goes for J.D. Vance's response too. So yeah, Paul literally asked him if he'd ever read To Kill a Mockingbird. No, I'm on serious. That's actually what that was actually the good doctor's prescription. That's the best he's got. That's literally his defense of what we shouldn't be fighting, or why we shouldn't be fighting back against foreign terrorist organizations trying to kill us, because Tom Robinson, the fictional character in the novel To Kill a Mockingbird, was wrongfully accused and imprisoned. Senator Paul, there's another book you should read. You might know the author. The book is called Hillbilly Elegy, and it's an entirely non-fictional account of what happens when foreign narco-terrorists are allowed by Democrats, with the encouragement of libertarians like yourself, to pour millions of pounds of deadly drugs into the poorest of our working-class communities. Or you could do one better. Put down the book and go meet some of your constituents in the Kentucky communities hit hardest by illegal illicit drugs. Sometimes the halls of Congress insulate and segregate even the most well-intentioned of legislators, to the point where they forget what the real world looks like. Take a first-hand look at the consequences of libertarian-supported open borders and a robust drug trade. You got city hands, Mr. Rand. You've been counting money all your life. There was a time when libertarian ideology, the low tax, low regulatory, puritanical strain of the Republican Party, was worth listening to. They've since morphed into a woke freak show that virtue signals anytime the American government violates the rights of foreign terrorists and criminal invaders, but gets quieter than a sleeping rhino when the same government violates the rights of its own citizens. I'm going to say this again. Our rights are given to us by God. We don't know the religious affiliations of these people, nor should we care. They are not American citizens, therefore they should not be afforded the same protection. And if they are literally trying to bring things into the country that are going to kill us, because remember, it takes it takes the head of a pin amount of this stuff to get into your skin, as far as fentanyl, and you could potentially die from it. Now they've got this newer synthetic opiate that I can't think of the name of right now. That's apparently 1,000,000 times worse than fentanyl, that has been around for a while, but is for some reason just now starting to show up in news cycles. I have no sympathy for these folks. So, audit the Fed? Yes, that's a great idea. And I wholeheartedly support it. I've been calling for it for quite some time. You've been a senator for 15 years, however, which is 15 years more than any of us. How much closer are you to securing that very audit that you've been screaming for? If it took any of us actual workers over 15 years to produce the result or even make progress towards the promise we made during our initial job interview, we would have been fired 14 and a half years ago. So you might want to dust off another document, Senator Paul. You might recognize it. It's called the Constitution. Please point out the sections that the rest of us somehow missed about how the federal government must maintain open borders and allow trade of any kind whatsoever, no matter how deadly its wares are to the citizenry. Please underline in yellow Sharpie for us plebeians where our founding fathers laid responsibility for extending the freedoms guaranteed in the Bill of Rights to enemies outside of our borders. Because if we missed all these clauses and preambles and amendments that you so vehemently defend, then so did a good number of your predecessors, including every president and Congress that ever went to war. How many millions of German and Japanese citizens died without American due process or even a fair trial? How many American, not foreign, but American citizens met the same fate because they happened to reside below the Mason-Dixon line? That's what war is, Senator. And if you took your responsibility of protecting American citizens as seriously as you do protecting drug cartel assholes, you'd focus on what the Constitution actually says. Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists operating in cooperation with hostile foreign governments do not enjoy the protection of the Bill of Rights, especially when they're operating outside of our borders. Over 10,000 Americans die every year from drug overdoses, which is a higher annual mortality rate than any overseas war we've ever fought. At least in those wars, we kill more of the enemy than they kill of us. But Senator Paul seems less upset with the millions of lives destroyed by the illegal drug trade and more upset that we took down a single boat of enemy combatants. And make no mistake, because that is what they are. They are murdering our civilians on our own soil, until now, with complete impunity. I don't think Senator Paul's intelligence matches the depths to which his online posts plumb. He's not stupid. And I don't think deep down he actually believes the words he posts, but I think enjoying the reputation of being an independent, along with the outsized relevance that comes with being a potential tie-breaking vote and an evenly divided Senate, has tainted his judgment with, dare I say, arrogance. Paul, of course, is a bit of a quirky guy. When he's on point, but when he busts out the Ayn Rand playbook on borders and drug cartels, he's lost all conservatives. Most independents and a good chunk of centrist liberals. The only ones supporting him are those actively trying to sow chaos and destruction across the nation, which means he's siding with the enemy, whether he wants to say he is or not. He needs to decide which reputation he wants to foster. The McCain-esque maverick who bucks his party initially from principle, then from a desire to nurture the maverick image until finally he's betrayed everyone he swore to protect, or the solid conservative who, despite the lack of media limelight, consistently fights for the voiceless and the downtrodden of his own country. Sincerely, I hope he course corrects. I don't know if he will, but I sincerely hope that he does. All right, we are going to take a break. We'll be right back here in just a couple minutes. We're going to do a bit of a musical interlude here on ALarmRadio.com. Sorry, I was moving the wrong slide here. Did I mention sleep deprived? One sec. and welcome again to the program, ladies and gentlemen, the final segment of the Tuesday edition of the Rick Robbins Show, otherwise known as the Not Monday edition. Live on the great Tuesday. Thank you so much for those of you that are hanging out for an unannounced show. We're nearing 200 at the two-thirds mark, I guess. So that's actually not terrible, especially for me. So thank you guys for hanging out with us today. And yeah, just to kind of recap this, easy. I'm going to see if I can grab that. 'Cause I feel like I don't keep going back to this stuff, but this is kind of important. I don't think this is kind of it's not in there. Anyway, okay. Well, I was gonna try it, but anyway, I can't figure out how to get restreams being a little special today. It's taking after the person who's paying. All right, so let's see what other trouble we can get. Let's make that go away. Come back over here and make that go away. Okay. At least that way when I come back to try to put something else up there, it'll look normal. All right. So let's see what other trouble we can get into on the way out the door, because I'm sure there's still plenty. I did have a couple funny things. I'm gonna see if I can find them. Hang on. Well, that was not what I thought it was going to be. Where did my bookmarks go? Oh, so yeah, this one first, because I can't say this because I'm a white dude. And if I say this, I would probably get beat the hell out of. But we're going to talk about this because I really want to talk about this. Because, yeah, you remember lately, because I guess some folks have gotten in trouble for pointing out, that slavery, while terrible, might not have been the worst thing that happened to the people that lost a war and were thrown in cages instead of being murdered or raped by the people, Anyway, so not trying to put too fine a point on it, but here's somebody who looks remarkably like one of them. And I want you to listen to what he says.
Somebody said to me,
as soon as I can remember to turn the volume back up.
Somebody said to me that if Jesus is black, heaven is a ghetto. Everywhere black people is a damn ghetto. Why should I be yelling at the white man? Hell, if it wasn't for him, we'd all probably be dead from diseases and sickness. Or hell, we each other. Wasn't for the white man. The white man built America. You say the slave built America. Don't they cover that lie? I'll slap the taste out of your mouth. You ain't built nothing. Half the time what you did build as a slave, the white man had to whoop your ass with a whoop to get you to do that little bit of work that you did do. It to whoop your ass to get it done. Talking about we built them. You ain't built a damn thing. Don't own a damn thing. None of it. You had Harlem, you threw that away. No, thank God for the white man. Thank God. He's built America and some other safe places. Built airlines so you can ride around on. Built automobiles. Hell, y'all ain't got one nation in Africa have built a car. Talking that damn talk. The only thing y'all can do is play basketball, run up and down the court like a bunch of double-jointed fools. Somebody said to me that if Jesus is black, heaven is a ghetto.
Sorry, I just kind of wanted that first part to play again because I hear the, Jesus ain't a white boy. Yeah, it's funny, but also sadly true. And that's the thing. When you start bringing truth to people that don't want to hear it, they just start screaming that you don't know what the hell you're talking about, which is why I wanted this guy to say it instead of me. Because, yeah. Um, I do like the point that even points out, for those of you screaming that the slaves built everything, they had to get their asses whooped to build it. Oh, anyway, I'm sorry. I'm probably having a little bit too much fun with that one. Well, actually, I forgot about that one, so that's a good point. So I guess there was a car in Ethiopia at one point. Apparently, it wasn't a good seller, though, according to BZ. So I'll send it to you after the show. Oh, all right. So I've got another one here. Oh yeah, this one is kind of another, smack across the face with everything that's going on. And hopefully at some point, assuming AOC is still, you know, in office at some point, this one might actually become a conservative alternative to that one. I don't know where she lives, so I doubt she'd be running in New York, but just pay attention to this, because this, that whole, no one's illegal on stolen land argument that you hear all the time, especially from the Democrats, because they're all like, let's do our land acknowledgement before we start talking about how much Republicans suck and how we don't know what we're going to do to stop Trump. Yeah, just pay attention to this.
Today, I heard a girl in my class talking to a classmate saying, well, they should just give us our land back in reference to deportation. I look over, this girl is white and blonde. The whole nobody is illegal on stolen land argument is bullshit. First of all, not one single place, not one single city, country, anything on this earth is owned by its original owners. Second of all, the part of Mexico that is now the US was bought. Third of all, the Native American land that was stolen was conquered, which is kind of just how the world worked at the time. And by the way, Native American tribes conquered land from each other. So I don't see you talking to other Native Americans saying, oh, you should give your land back to that tribe, because you don't care. If no one is illegal on stolen land, just go to North Korea, see how that theory holds up. Go there with no papers. You'll probably be stuck there forever if you're not killed. No one is illegal on stolen land, but I'm gonna call the cops when you're on my lawn. Additionally, every single nation on this earth, there is not a single one that does not practice deportation. And the only country with people that are whining and complaining about it for whatever reason is the US. I just think it's absolutely wild that Democrats are living in the United States of America and all they want to do is divide. All they think about is race. That's all they think about. They see people supporting deportation and automatically assume, oh, so you hate Mexicans? Babe, why do you think Mexicans are the only people being deported? That's on you for that assumption. If you don't want to live in a safe country, go ahead. We'll let anyone in. We won't do background checks. We won't kick anyone out. See who comes in. See who comes in and takes advantage of us, because deportation is how we keep our country safe. And no, I'm not saying that all illegal immigrants are unsafe. Most of them are very good people. But what I am saying is you cannot just let hundreds of thousands of people into this country without any background checks, any vetting, anything. You guys scream, oh, guns should be harder to get in. Yeah, they should, but you don't think that it should be hard to get into the country. Make it make sense.
Okay, so I disagree with some of what she said there towards the end, but the first minute or so of that was absolute gold. No, guns should not be harder to get. As a matter of fact, I think it's a violation of the Second Amendment that we don't have access to things like, M16s and Apache helicopters, because reasons. But anyway, that's just me. I'm a bit extreme when it comes to that one. Yeah, I don't know. She's a little young for me. Otherwise, I might have tried to legit grab her too. But anyway, sorry, talking to the chat again. So you're like, what the hell? I thought I had at least one more, but I don't know if I do. Oh, so this is one that I didn't get to the other day, I don't think. So I'm going to put this up on the screen. Hang on. I don't know if you guys saw this one. But that thing that ain't never supposed to happen was happening. So, according to a U.S. attorney, Canadian indicted after 20 years. 20 years of voting illegally in North Carolina. So, that thing that never happens, that thing that's impossible, it can't happen. Yeah, apparently it did. And was going on for like 20 years. All right, so I've got one more. This one is kind of a Darwin Award kind of thing. So just to set this up.
Today I heard a girl in my class.
I don't know what just happened, but hang on. Okay, we got it over there. I guess it's because I had the volume up. I tried to play the other one first. All right, here we go.
Unlock the door! Put down that tape! Drop the knife now! Drop it! Put the knife down! Ow! Get up and top! Oh, God, have mercy. Y'all had to shoot. Y'all could taser. Y'all could have taser. Y'all had to shoot.
Suspects down. She got a taser. We did taser.
Who shot?
She came at me with a knife. What the hell did you expect me to do?
Somebody call that. Cover me. Cover me. Now, come back down. Y'all had to kill the child.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is when Rowdy Rick points out that there's no such fucking thing as a routine traffic stop. And all she had to do was put down the knife and comply, and she wouldn't have been shot. It really is that simple. It really is that simple. And in case you couldn't hear it in the video, why do they keep doing that? Stop doing it. Anyway, sorry. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but it was bugging me because that one video keeps trying to start over again, and I'm not even on that screen. But anyway, so I don't know if you could hear it, but it looks, from what I could hear and from what I saw, it looks like the cop on the passenger side broke out the window with his baton and then did try to tase her because you could hear the clicks. So they did deploy a taser. I'm honestly kind of surprised they didn't follow what is normal standard procedure when deploying a taser and actually yelling that they were doing so, just so everybody around them kind of knew what they were doing. But then again, you got somebody waving a knife at you. Some of that stuff goes out the window for you. So I'm not really throwing stones. But the chick that's screaming and yelling on the porch, "Oh my God, you shot her. She's coming at me with a knife and we already tried to tase her. What the hell you think I'm going to do?" Is pretty much exactly what she said. Y'all got things effed up if you think the cops are supposed to die. And the thing about it is, you guys can't decide what you want. According to a lot of the governors and a lot of the mayors, and according to Slavey Crockett, the cops aren't actually supposed to stop crime. They're just supposed to investigate it. And then you guys are the ones that were screaming and yelling when the Supreme Court said that really the cops have no direct duty to protect based on recent court interpretations, which basically makes them more of what I used to do when I went private sector and did private security, which was just to observe and report and to make sure the documentation was in place so that if anybody had to go to court or if there was any property damage, there were things that could be done for insurance companies. That's what that recent ruling did. So pick a lane. Do you want the cops doing things? Do you want the cops not doing things? Because you can't have it both ways. And you can't get pissed off at a cop if somebody's charging them with a knife. If you're dumb enough to bring a knife to a gunfight, you get whatever the fuck you deserve. And if that hurts your feelings, sorry, not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Once I got to the point where I was training my people when I was building my company, one of the first things I always told every single one of them is it's much better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And I was told the same thing by my TO. Because the objective, when you do the kind of work that those people in that video were doing, is not only to keep your community safe, but to make sure that you're safe and that you get to go home. And too many of them every single day don't get to do that. Because A lot of the people that are supposed to be watching out for them have abdicated their responsibilities. And you're seeing it happen everywhere, which is why, even though I disagree if it expands past DC in the capacity that he's currently done it, I understand why Donald Trump stepped in and did what he did with DC, because he has the authority to do so. So for everybody who's talking about, well, he's vacillating and he's saying this, but then he's doing that. He's doing what he can within legal frameworks, which is exactly what you said he wouldn't do, because he's a dictator. He's not acting very dictatory, by the way. He's listening to the courts, fighting through the legal system, getting things interpreted well enough where he understands what the framework is that he can work with, which is why ICE is predominantly what's doing the whole midway cleanup right now. So again, not very dictatory. Another thing that I find absolutely amazing is the hate that FLOTUS still gets from the same people that are like, they don't have to learn the language to come here. And then she starts speaking English as best as she can, knowing she's fluent in, I think, 5 other languages. And they're like, isn't she going to learn the language? She's our first lady. She already speaks it better than most of you. Have you guys heard Slavey Crockett lately? Is anybody else really happy that her district's basically going away? Just me? I'll raise my hand. Yeah, I'm kind of okay with it. I'm kind of okay with it. Now she'll probably just move. And run somewhere else, but because they don't seem to care about those rules anymore either. Because it used to be you had to live in the district you represented. There's a lot of folks that are getting away with not having to do that. So I'm not really sure if that's being enforced very well anymore. All right. Believe it or not, folks, we are just about out of time already. One of these days, if I can actually start getting organized well enough and get caught up on all the things that I keep having to move around because of everything else that I'm trying to do, I may actually go back to 3 hours all the time again. But for today, tomorrow, and Thursday, there will only be 2-hour editions of the Rick Robinson Show. Friday, we do have the 3-hour edition. Normally, I try to have guests on, and also usually in second hour, if I have anybody available to do guest spots, I have them on there. And then third hour, we do the news roundup with myself and Brad and anybody else from any red-leaning outlets that want to come on and discuss their favorite children, as Brad calls them, because I usually make him pick from one of them. Tell me which one he enjoyed writing the most for the week, and it's always, oh sure, make me choose my favorite child. Well, I write for a living too, and I have to do it too. So anyway, so one last quick hit on the way out, and then we really do have to go, because apparently the Black Lives Matter group has launched a GoFundMe for this subway stabber. Tell me again, there's not a big difference between how this works. I can't believe GoFundMe's been allowing it to stay active, but I guess I really shouldn't be that surprised. All right, so we're going to get out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It looks like we've got about 200 of you hanging out with us towards the end, so thank you very much for that. I will be back tomorrow. The Cocktail Lounge will be live tonight starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And then don't forget, Manorama will be live tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. And BZ will be partaking in and participating in the first official Manorama game show. So make sure you guys tune in for that. And I will see you tomorrow. Since I didn't sleep last night, I'm going to try to grab a nap and then probably write like a crazy person, because I haven't written much this month yet. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much again for hanging out with us today.
What? Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
Close it.
Whoops, hang on. What did I do?
Which one was that?
That's not it either. Okay, so I think I fixed it now. Sorry, apparently I hit the wrong button when I was trying to go out, but I also want to break in because BZ just let me know that according to the New York Post, that GoFundMe has been pulled. All right, so we're going back to our regularly scheduled outro. Bye, everybody.
Time, open all the doors and let you out into the world. This isn't over until I say it's over! Closing time.
Well, that's great. This is fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? Game over, man. Game over.
Closing time. Time for you to go out to the places you will be from. Closing time. This room won't be open till your brothers or your sisters come.
I love you, Oklahoma. What a great crowd. I love you.
Say goodnight, Gracie.